In this demonstration, we'll take a look at how to configure static routing on a Juniper device. Let's first take a look at my network diagram for the two routers that I do have configured. I have a New York router called NY-R1, and it's connected to the Boston router, which is called Boston-R1. Now, each of these routers is also connected to the appropriate LAN. So back over here is our LAN environment. The IPs for the two different LANs, the LAN for the New York environment is the 11 network, so 11.0.0.0. With the interface, those little green dashes there represent our interfaces. So the interface on the New York router that's connected to that LAN has the IP address of .1, so it's 11.0.0.1. Over here on the right-hand side, we have the 13 network for the Boston LAN, and the interface for the network card that's plugged into the Boston router is 13.0.0.1. Then up here on our WAN link that's connecting the two different routers together, it's represented by the 12 network. So the New York router has an IP address of 12.0.0.1, and the Boston router has an IP address of 12.0.0.2. I'm going to do everything from the context of the Boston router. First thing I want to do is show you that from the Boston router, I can ping this .1 address, but I won't be able to ping anything that's on the 11 network. And the reason being is when I look at the routing table on this Boston router, we won't be able to see the 11 network in the routing table. So I've got to go and add that route to the routing table so that the Boston router has knowledge of how to reach that 11 network. So let's take a look at how to do this. So I'm on the Boston router. The first thing that I want to do is show you that I can ping from the Boston router 12.0.0.1. And you can see that I am getting my replies back from 12.0.0.1. So I'm going to Control-C that to stop that. Now I'm going to try to ping 11.0.0.1. Now remember, this is the interface that's farther away from the Boston router, and I can't ping that. So it tells you no route to the host exists. So when troubleshooting this kind of situation, we use the command show route. Show route will show my routing table, and I can see here that I have 4 destination networks. We have a destination to the 12 network. So if my system, which is the Boston router, needs to reach the 12 network, it'll send the packet out the fast Ethernet 0/0/0 interface. And also notice that I know of that network, or the Boston router knows of that network, because it has a direct link to that network. And our preference value is also displayed there. The preference value is used if the router gets knowledge of a destination network multiple ways. The preference value is how the router selects which of those methods or which of those routes is considered the active route. Bottom line is the lowest preference value will win. So in this case, I can see the preference value is 0, which means that I get knowledge by being directly connected. Notice that we don't, and we also have a route here to the 192.168.1.0 network. Notice that I don't have a route to the 11 network, and that's why I can't ping anything on the 11 network, because I need to have a route to that network. So that's what I'm going to do here, is I'm going to add the route to that network by typing the command in. First thing I got to do is go to configuration mode. So I type in the edit command, and then I'm going to do a set routing options. Now the routing options I want to play with in this demonstration is I want to demonstrate static routing. So I'm going to do static route. So set routing options, static route. So a static route is when you as the administrator manually configure the route on the router itself, versus a dynamic route would come from a routing protocol where the routers dynamically share the information, the routing information, without you needing to manually administer the device. So static routing is a little bit more labor intensive in the sense that you have to manually configure the route. So I have to say, here's the 11 network, and this is how you're going to reach that 11 network. So administratively, in a large enterprise environment, this would be an administrative nightmare because it is a lot of work. Whereas realistically, the opposite of static routing is dynamic routing. It'd be nice to load up a protocol and just have the routers share the routes with one another automatically. So for small environments, static routing is great because there wouldn't be a lot of routes to add manually as the network administrator. Now, a benefit of static routing is with dynamic routing, the protocols are using up network bandwidth to share that routing information. So with static routing, once I configure this, there's no packets being exchanged to share the information because it's all configured by me as the network administrator. So I do want to create a static route here, which means I, as the administrator, am manually entering in the information. And so I want to add a route to the 11.0.0.0 network with a /8, which means the first 8 bits make up the network ID. So it's the 11 network. And then we use the next hop option, which is telling the router, okay, if you do have a packet for the 11 network, send it over to 12.0.0.1. Now remember, I can reach the 12.0.0.1 interface, so your next hop value has to be a value that you can reach already from this router. So I'm going to hit enter, and once I hit enter, I'm going to commit that change, and then I'm going to go back to operational mode, and I'm going to display my routing table. So I do an exit, and I'm going to do a show route. So now we can see that my routing table, I have 5 destinations or 5 routes, right? The first route here is the new route I added. It's the 11.0.0.0 network. It is a static route. So that's how the route got into the routing table, is instead of me being directly connected to that network, the administrator statically configured the route. And then the preference value here for static routes is 5. We can also see how the 11 network can be reached. So we need to send the data over to 12.0.0.1 out of my fast Ethernet 0/0/0 interface. So notice that all the information there is there for the router to know how to find that network. So now what I want to do is I want to test that. I'm going to ping 11.0.0.1, and I should be able to ping that network. So you can see that I am getting replies from 11.0.0.1. So in this demonstration, we saw how to configure static routes on a Juniper device.